First off, a content warning for mentions of sex trafficking, violence, and rape, as well as survival sex work. So if you don't want to hear about any of that, no hard feelings, just sit this one out and take care of yourself. What is sex work? Where is sex work? Who is sex work? Hi, I'm sex work, I mean Max. And what I do falls under the category of sex work. Well, not necessarily here on YouTube, but check out my Just for fans. And I'll be giving you an introduction to what sex work is. I use this term a lot on my channel, but if you're not necessarily 100% sure what it means, that can be very confusing. So, let's get my handy dandy laptop here. According to Wikipedia, a sex worker is a person who is employed in the sex industry. Oh no, my computer just blue screened. This isn't a bit, it literally did blue screen. Okay, let's try this again. According to Wikipedia, a sex worker is a person who is employed in the sex industry. The term is used in reference to those in all areas of the sex industry, including those who provide direct sexual services. So to put it in layman's terms, a sex worker is anyone who works with sex, sexuality, or kink in varying levels of interaction. But more importantly, sex work isn't any of the following. Sex trafficking. This is a common misconception that hurts victims of sex trafficking and sex workers alike. For example, anti-sex work legislation like SWer were introduced to crack down on sex trafficking on the internet. Like, they're literally named the Stop Enabling Sex Trafficking Act and the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act. However, after the introduction of both of these bills, police came out and said that these bills make their jobs harder. And many sex workers online have been anything but silent about SWer. And if you remember a time where Tumblr was a sweet haven for all things sexual, then you too dislike SWer. And you're not going to be a fan of the newly introduced Sissy, which I'll throw up a card for here. Furthermore, sex work isn't always illegal. What people typically tend to think of when you say the word sex work is full-service sex workers, which we'll be discussing in detail later on in this video. Their work is more often than not criminalized and illegal. However, it should be decriminalized at a national level because it would offer protections for sex workers, well, for full-service sex workers. It would offer them protections from theft, rape, assault, from the hands of clients, as well as the hands of police. Now, if you're a New York resident, like I used to be, contact your representatives and tell them to move towards full decriminalization versus the equality model. If you're not aware, the equality model is similar to the Nordic model, where selling sex in itself is not criminalized, but buying sex or pimping is. This may sound good in theory, but in New York, promoting prostitution, which is pimping, by their definition, is defined as third parties who facilitate or make money from the prostitution of others. But this legal definition, as well as several others, have gotten boyfriends, roommates, and landlords in trouble for just giving housing to a full-service sex worker? And it has resulted in sex workers losing their housing, which, if that is the place in which they work, it is much safer for them to work in their house than it is to work on the streets. And even more importantly, shelter is a large part to what makes humans actually feel secure enough to be able to pursue life. We don't want to see the cycle of denying housing to sex workers continue in New York City. Nor do we want the equality model to set the precedent for the rest of the United States if it does get passed. We need full sex work decriminalization now. Lastly, all sex work is not survival sex work. Survival sex work is, to be fair, also an umbrella term, like sex work. But generally, survival sex work is sex work, typically full service, but theoretically could be any kind, that is done for the exchange of for money, food, drugs, shelter, etc. Anything that they kind of just need to survive. To be honest, I'm not a fan of the word survival sex worker. It has a useful definition and a useful term to be used in some cases. However, even when I was a survival sex worker, because under capitalism, there was a requirement to work. Well, at least for us little people. Thus, all work that could be considered labor by definition is survival. But my contractually obligated anti-capitalism aside, wait, hold on a second. There we go. There's the addition to my bank account. Thanks, Mr. Soros. What I'm trying to get at is that not all sex work is coerced. Some people actually enjoy what they do and do it of their own volition. However, that may not be the case for everyone. And I'm not trying to erase those people who do not feel fulfilled by this line of work. Just like I'm not trying to erase any worker that doesn't feel fulfilled by their line of work. The bitter truth is that capitalism does force us to do some things that we don't like. And I don't think that sex work is inherently different because it's selling your body. Because all labor, in some cases, is selling your body. Is a miner not selling his body to the mine? I talk about this a little bit more in this video. It's a little old, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't watched it in months, probably since I edited it. There's not gonna be the high production quality that you see here, where I'm not even wearing shoes. I keep showing my feet in videos. I need to stop. But now that we know what sex work is, and more importantly, is not, what are some types of sex workers? Well, let me play you this educational video and we'll find out. The sex worker genus has many subspecies. Researchers say that there are up to 25 different subspecies of sex worker. But today we are going to be focusing on 5 main subspecies. Here we have the full-service sex worker. They exchange money, goods, or other valuables for sex. Their habitats are many, from online to the streets to brothels. They were known as prostitutes, but now we know that word is incorrect, as prostitution is a criminal definition and carries a negative connotation. And while there are other specific terms like escort, full-service sex worker is the broadest term to encapsulate this subspecies. Typically, they carry the most stigma. But make no mistake, all sex work carries stigma, both by the law and by society. Moving on, we have adult film actors. They are defined as folks that have sex on camera for money with other performers. Their numbers showed massive growth in the year 2020, particularly in the OnlyFans and camming regions. However, the studio habitat is still thriving, albeit not as much as the 70s. Furthermore, we have Gogo and exotic dancers. They are defined as, dancers that dance in various levels of undress. They are an active and agile group and will dance over 100 miles in their lifetime. Their habitat is varied based on gender and sexuality. However, some examples are at most local gay clubs or in gentlemen's/ladies clubs. Then we have pro-doms and their lesser known counterpart, pro-subs. Contrary to popular belief, many pro-doms do not have sex with their clients. However, due to how society views kink, the nature of their work remains sexual. However, kink in and of itself is not inherently sexual. Like full-service sex workers, they have a variety of habitats, including online, in dungeons, and even at your local munch. However, this is probably not the time to inquire about their services. Lastly, some people would even consider sex therapists or sexual educators as part of the sex worker genus. Myself, I don't personally disagree or agree with the research done on these topics. However, I do find it interesting. Awesome investigative work from my colleague there, but Just keep in mind that none of these categories are mutually exclusive. A sex worker could be one or more of these categories. Hell, they could be all of them. In fact, many sex workers do more than one type of sex worker, myself included. Well, that's the end of the video. If you like the video, comment your favorite type of sex work, either to do or partake in, and subscribe. As always, my links are in the description. Have a great rest of your day or whenever you're watching this. Okay, bye.